Welcome to Echoes Untold, the place where forgotten events, untold stories, and history's quietest whispers are brought to light. Today we journey to the heart of the 1971 Indo-Pak War, where not just battles but destinies were forged. Aboard the mighty INS Vikrant, a ship once deemed too broken to sail, turned the tide of an entire war. This is not just a story of steel and fire. This is a story of strategy, deception, courage, and the birth of a nation. Echoes Untold, where history whispers and we listen. The year is 1971. East Pakistan is in flames. What began as a struggle for linguistic and cultural identity had become a full-blown genocide. Operation Searchlight, launched by the Pakistani military in March, turned the streets of Dhaka and the countryside of Bengal into blood-soaked battlegrounds. Over 10 million refugees fled into India, an exodus unmatched in modern history. The strain on India's resources and patience reached a breaking point. Meanwhile, on the global chessboard, the United States and China backed Pakistan. The Soviet Union stood with India. It was no longer just a regional dispute, it was a Cold War flashpoint. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, with a steely resolve and immense diplomatic skill, signed the Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship, and Cooperation in August 1971. Buying India the strategic cover it needed. War was no longer a question of if, it was when. PNS Vikrant, India's only aircraft carrier, was already legendary. Originally built as HMS Hercules by the British during World War II, she was never completed in time for service. India acquired her in 1957, commissioning her as INS Vikrant in 1961. But by 1970, she was in trouble. Her boilers, critical for propulsion, were failing. For many, she was a majestic relic, unfit for war. Yet the Indian Navy saw potential where others saw decay. Engineers and naval commanders devised an audacious solution: operate Vikrant using just one functional boiler. Her top speed would be limited to 14 knots, sluggish by wartime standards, but she could still function as a floating airfield. This wasn't just engineering. It was a gamble. A war was coming, and the Navy's most prized asset could become its biggest liability. But Vikrant was not destined to rest in harbor. In November 1971, Vikrant quietly left Bombay, escorted by a battle group led by frigates and destroyers. The eastern seaboard was her destination. Under strict radio silence, she sailed past Indian shores and entered the Bay of Bengal, taking up a strategic position off the coast of East Pakistan. Here, she waited, for war, for orders, for history to unfold. Her flight deck buzzed with activity. Hawker Seahawk fighter jets, relics of W-2 technology. Every sailor aboard knew the stakes. The carrier had no second chances. If spotted by Pakistan's Navy, or worse, the feared submarine PNS Ghazi, she could be targeted before she ever launched a strike. But India had a plan. Pakistan's Navy had only one hope of neutralizing Vikrant. The PNS Ghazi, a long-range American-built Tench-class submarine armed with torpedoes and mines. Her mission, hunt down Vikrant and sink her. But Indian intelligence was one step ahead. Knowing Ghazi was coming, the Navy executed a deception operation. Vikrant was kept far away from Visakhapatnam, but the illusion was crafted that she remained docked there. Indian destroyer Ines Rajput was deployed as bait. On the night of December 3rd, 4, off the coast of Visakhapatnam, Ghazi mysteriously exploded and sank. The exact cause of the sinking is still debated. Indian records claim it was depth charges from INS Rajput. Pakistani sources allege an internal detonation. Others speculate that Ghazi mistakenly triggered her own mines. What mattered was this: the biggest threat to Vikrant was gone. The Bay of Bengal was now a battlefield Vikrant could dominate. On December 4th, 1971, INS Vikrant launched her first wave of airstrikes. Her Seahawks took off with deadly precision, targeting Chittagong and Kulnajet after jets screamed into the skies, dropping ordnance on port facilities, naval vessels, and supply chains. Fuel depots burst into flame, ammunition dumps exploded. Enemy ships were crippled or sunk. For the next 10 days, Vikrant operated as a floating sword, unleashing over 270 sorties in the Bay of Bengal. The strikes destroyed over 24 ships, including patrol boats and merchant vessels, choking Pakistan's supply lines. This wasn't just destruction. It was total isolation. East Pakistan's forces were now cut off by sea, as Indian Army divisions pushed in from land and Mukti Bahini guerrillas fought from within. On December 16, 1971, just 13 days after the war began, the largest military surrender since World War II occurred in Dhaka. Over 93,000 Pakistani troops laid down arms. A new nation, Bangladesh, was born. PNS Vikrant returned home a legend. She had overcome mechanical failure, enemy submarines, and the odds of history itself. She became more than just a warship. She became a symbol of India's naval awakening, a moment when the Indian Navy transitioned from coastal defense to blue water assertiveness. In Bangladesh, Vikrant is remembered not as a foreign warship, but as a liberator. After her glory in 1971, Vikrant served until 1997. She was eventually turned into a floating museum in Mumbai. Sadly, in 2014, she was scrapped due to safety and financial concerns, a controversial decision that still stings historians and veterans. But in her honor, a new INS Vikrant was born, India's first indigenous aircraft carrier, commissioned in 2022. She carries not just her predecessor's name, but her legacy. In war, it's easy to measure power in weapons, but the real strength lies in resolve, in taking a broken ship and turning it into the sharpest blade in your arsenal. PNS Vikrant did not just fight, she changed history. If this journey moved you, share, comment below, and subscribe to Echoes Untold, where history whispers and we listen. Fact-check note: all historical data has been verified using official and scholarly sources, including Indian Navy official records, Navy.gov.in Transition to Triumph by Vice Admiral G.M. Hiranandani, Naval Historical Series, Volume 2, Bharat Rakshak, Naval Archives, Government of India War Logs, 1971, The Sinking of PNS, Ghazi Naval War College Review, The Hindu Archives, 1971, BBC Reports on 1971, Indo-Pak War Declassified Indian Defense Ministry Documents, 2021.